you all to stand, but instead of the Pledge of Allegiance, we are being honored by the Kerfuffle Barbershop Quartet, which will sing the national anthem for us. And just to introduce them before they start is Ben Dimmitt, Jackson Homestead, Eric Nagarajan, and Thomas Ritchie.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free, land of the free, of the free, and the home of the brave.
God, that was awesome. Thank you.
Perhaps they come back every week.
Yeah.
Every meeting. Huh?
Gets us started on a high note here. Thank you very much for coming. Okay, all are present this evening. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda? By Eric. Second? Any comments or discussion, questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries 7-0. Okay, on our consent agenda this evening is the check wire transfer disbursement summary, the bank reconciliation statement for December, the board meeting minutes from January 9th, 2012, which was our organizational meeting, and January 9th, 2012 was our regular meeting, and a work session on January 23rd, 2012. Donations as follows. Donations through the Wells Fargo Giving Campaign, $175 from Jill Dahl, $175 from Jennifer Everson, $134.61 from Loretta Spearley, $53.83 from Breon Silman, $53.83 from Marlis Gesme, $30.80 from Laurette Willett for Hidden Oaks Middle School, and $5,000 from PLAY for the new gym floor at Greenwood Elementary. And the resignations, terminations, and non-renewals as listed. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So move.
By Tom, second.
Go ahead, Stacy.
By Stacy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries 7-0. Tonight we have a few things going on. The first one is our Laker Pride, and we'll start with Sue Ann and Kelly McDermott, if she would come forward. Sarah, so. Here's Kelly. This is a very special honor that Kelly McDermott has won. It is a national award from the VFW for her dedication to education, not just in the math class, but in teaching students to be good citizens and helping them develop projects that benefit our troops in different areas in different ways. And so she has received the VFW Educator of Excellence Award and will be traveling all expense paid to Las Vegas with her husband. Reno. Yeah, also. Oh, yeah. Reno, Las Vegas. Very soon. Coming up in July.
So yeah, for 4 days.
And what will happen there?
They have their
tell us what kinds of projects you've done that really earn the eye of the VFW at this national level?
Sure. Well, for the last it's been 5 years now, we've adopted a platoon, and so we send letters to the men and women overseas. We send them care packages, we send them birthday cards, we've been able to Skype with them, and we've had soldiers come back and visit with the students and talk to them, but we've had like pen pals, and each kid's been paired off with a soldier, and so we've had correspondence going back and forth and done videos, and they sent us stuff. So, and it's started going 5 years ago with my brother-in-law, and then it's just kept going every year since. So it's been good and fun and busy.
And
so,
busy.
Yeah.
And the students, what's their reaction?
They like it, and I have kids who go up to the high school who remember it, and they email me and ask if we're still doing it. So
Good.
yeah, it's been a good thing.
Well, we're very proud of this accomplishment and very proud of the work that you're doing at Noakes and for our students. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes. Lee has a certificate. Thank you. I have a certificate for you. Recognition of your work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks for your patience. The roads are rough out there. My name is Lori Den, and I am the president of the MCEA, and it is with honor that I present to Leanne and Sarah the Outstanding Project Award for the year 2011, presented to your organization on behalf, in honor of the Camp Echo adventure. So here you go.
Well, the camp has been in existence since 2008. We've served over 544 students. This is pretty good. I'm just going from memory here. And Sarah is one of the teachers, and Kara Rickenberg is also involved, but she couldn't be here. And Carrie Doby is on maternity leave. And whom am I missing? Oh, and Leanne Weichel. Did you want to comment?
I love the program, and it's awesome opportunity for all the kids in Prior Lake Savage, and it complements beautifully what we already do with environmental education.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is our Lakers Showcase, and we have the privilege of our athletic boosters and our boosters of the arts here tonight to give us a kind of a brief summary of what they've been doing. And I'm not sure who's representing who, so I'll let Eric take over.
Board, Dr. Groover, Christika. How are you doing tonight? You know, the LABC and the PAA are vital to the activities department with all the fundraising that they do. They subsidize basically our budget that we have within the activities department, and for the strides that we've made in both those departments, it's because of these people and the hard work and dedication that they have. Paula Case and Sean Ritchie are going to speak in a little bit. A new adventure that we have coming up, and some of you were at the meeting with the Shakopee, Mdewakan, and Sioux, is the Laker Music Fest. We're going to be working a joint adventure. We're one of the nonprofits that the Rotary is working with that. So without these people, we could not be who we are as Lakers. So Paula and then Sean are going to speak to what they've done for the activities department so far.
Actually, I'm Amy Card. I'm starting up. The guys are showing one of our primary fundraisers that we do for the general LABC fund, which is collect poster ads, and this is something that Lynn Hoff Photo has done for us this year, is combining all of our sports onto one giant publicity ad. So we basically represent 29 sports, and the general LABC fund is primarily funded by the poster ads, memberships and donations, and then also in the past 2 years we've done a calendar cash raffle. This year that will be put on the back burner because we are doing the Music Fest for our 3 primary fundraisers. In addition to that, each of our sports does their own individual fundraisers to help support through their seasons for their coaches, for numerous equipment needs, you name it, it's in there. In the past 4 years, not counting fully this year, the LABC has contributed $207,000 to Laker Athletics.
Hi, I'm Paula Case, and on behalf of the boosters, we'd like to publicly thank the community for their moral, physical, and financial support. We appreciate and recognize the community's active participation in the lives of our athletes. The LABC is a club that is made up of volunteer representatives from the 29 sports currently offered at the high school. Our club meets once a month to network and to strategically plan and budget for meeting the needs of all student athletes. We believe that active students usually earn better grades and feel more connected to their school. We also believe that a well-rounded education includes a strong co-curricular program that encourages self-esteem and teaches self-discipline. The goal of our Booster Club is to play a vital role in the continued success of our Prior Lake Savage athletes. We cannot do this alone, so again, we wanted to come tonight to publicly thank our community and the many businesses for all that they do to help our kids succeed.
I'm the president of the Patrons of the Arts and Activities. We're a fairly young group. We're actually the booster club for the arts and non-athletic activities. So I have to do my little cheating here. We too wish to thank the community. We could not do this without you, without your support of our children. The PAA just started in the year 2006, and right now we help about 1,000 plus kids in the activities such as art, high school and middle school band, choir, knowledge bowl, mock trial, theater, speech, and robotics. The mission is to promote and encourage students in the arts and activities. We provide financial resources, networking, volunteering, and overall encouraging the kids. We also meet once a month, and then our main fundraiser is we run a spring drive. That'll be coming up here soon, and contributors can find their name on the Wall of Fame, and our Wall of Fame is found right outside the auditorium at Prior Lake High School. Then we do have individual booster clubs as well, kind of under our umbrella, and they do run their own fundraisers for different events that they need. Since 2008, we've received over $31,000 in donations, and to date, we've funded approximately $28,000 in requests for things like robotic scholarships. We helped fund additional workspace for them. We've done supported band instruments. We've helped with things for the theater, which have overall helped the auditorium at the high school. Minnesota Artists in Residence. We've supplied the funds for a Knowledge Bowl assistant coach, a one-act director, a chess coach, voice lesson scholarships. Those are a few of the things that we've helped fund. These skills, we can't say enough, the skills that these kids learn by participating in these activities will be with them for the rest of their life. It'll help them in their careers, college, and community involvement. These are skills that they will never, ever lose. And we really want to thank the community for helping our kids, helping support them, and we encourage you to come watch their competitions, watch their performances, and continue to support them because they couldn't do it without you, and we couldn't either. Thank you.
Just real quick, my name is Debbie Kelly. I'm the president of the Laker Athletic Booster Club for all of 3 weeks now. If there's, I'm still wet behind the ears. If there's anything I can do for anybody, please feel free to reach out. I'll be happy to see what we can do. Okay, thank you.
Oh, and we do have to say, if you want to buy a raffle ticket or a button, you want to think about a student, because we have a lot of athletes and a lot of kids in the arts going to be selling those buttons and tickets, so support your students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I think we as a board are very appreciative of all the work you do, and thank you very much, because we agree that we wouldn't have the co-curriculars without you. So thank you. Moving on to our open forum. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the board this evening on an item we do not have on our agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to personnel. Matt?
All right, first I recommend the following candidates for employment and seeking board approval.
Do I have a motion to accept the candidates for employment as listed? By Eric, second?
Second.
By Todd. Any comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries 7-0. Next.
And next, I present the following leaves of absence and seeking board approval.
Do I have a motion to accept the leaves of absence as listed? By Tom, second by Mike. Any comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries 7-0. Moving on now, thanks Matt. Moving on to old business. This is about our meeting schedule proposal with a change. And this was talked about at the board session, work session we had in January. And the proposal is that we would have one regular meeting per month on the second Monday of the month, and our fourth meeting of the month would be a work session. The regular meetings would continue to begin at 7 o'clock, and our work sessions would be at 6. Emphasizing that both of those meetings are open to the public, however, only one of them would be web streamed and still on cable too, right? Does anyone have any comments or discussion about that? Eric?
Just a quick clarification that we're only talking about now through the end of June, correct?
That's correct.
As we have our.
Right. Our calendar is only through then, and then we'll readdress it and assess as to whether we want to continue. Thanks for the clarification. Anyone else? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the new meeting schedule? By Mike, second by Stacy. Any comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries 7-0. Moving on to new business, we have the staff development quarter report by Eric and Sheila.
Good evening, Chair and board members. We had the opportunity to visit with you this fall and to give you kind of an update as what to look for this year. And so we now have another opportunity mid-year to just give you a brief update as to just a couple areas within staff development that we are busy working on. You did receive a more comprehensive report of all of the different professional activities that have been happening from the beginning of the school year up until now. We're going to highlight just a couple tonight for you, one of them being the area of curriculum and the other in the area of technology. For the curriculum area, we have, at the secondary level, we have a lot of vertical teaming going on. We have representatives in all of the content areas in the middle school and the high school. And they have had an opportunity to get together 6-12 staff to vertically meet as a team and talk about a lot of different things going on with their curriculum. One of our goals this year was to work on assessments, and that has kind of taken a little bit of a back burner because with the 6-period day and with that change of schedule, we kind of had to take on some other different things to work on. And so they're working on kind of revising their coursework. They're creating new courses as well as looking at ways to kind of embed those standards into what they're currently doing. And so we haven't forgot about assessments. We are going to try to focus on that for next year, but we're trying to honor the staff's request as they do need some time to meet and collaborate to kind of figure out with this transition how this is all going to work best and to be successful for them and the students. So a lot of time has been spent 6-12 collaborating and team meetings by departments to work on those different areas. The elementary has been busy working in two different big areas, one in the area of science. We have 37 teachers who represent the elementary district committee. And from this diagram, you can kind of see kind of around the inner part of our circle, we have K-5 teachers from every grade level that represent our staff. And they come together. Kara Rickenberg leads our science committee meetings, and teachers get a sub for the day, and so teachers have sub-release time. And we've been doing some professional development with our staff on those sub-release days. And this is it's been really kind of a huge shift because, I don't know if you know this, but we haven't had a new science curriculum for 20 years. We've had FOSS for a long time, and so this has been a little bit of a shift for our staff, kind of trying to incorporate a little bit more STEM, doing a lot more inquiry-based learning, and so there's a lot of training that needs to take place. And so Kara's done a nice job working with our core committee of science teachers, and they then go out into their buildings and at staff meetings and at grade level meetings are trying to kind of disseminate that training and information. And so a lot of that happens on our sub-release time. The flip side to that is on our district workshop days and our early release days. Same type of model, except now we have those core district reps now meeting with district grade level teams. So you're not working just individually in your own building. So all of first grade, all of second grade, kindergarten, they all get to meet with the science committee rep. And they are busy working on all of those different trainings that have taken place and kind of extending their learning, learning the new National Geographic curriculum. And there's a lot of technology focus with this curriculum too, and so there's a lot of learning that has taken place with that as well. And so a lot of that happens on our early release and in-service time. In addition to science, we also have 25 math teachers who are also coming together, and Kara has also been meeting with them. They are currently piloting our new math expressions curriculum, and they have been receiving training just as a core group. There hasn't been a lot of training done outside of that with staff. We do have an early release day coming up in May, I believe, and that's going to be kind of the first dip for a lot of our staff to kind of get to know a little bit more about math expressions and what it's about. It'll be really nice that a lot of these teachers have had the experience of this year working with that new curriculum and can kind of coach and help those teachers through that transition next year. We'll also be doing a little bit of work this summer, as well as back to school workshop. We'll be really busy with probably revisiting some science things as well as math.
In the realm of technology, I want to highlight just two areas. One is the curriculum shared folder, and the other one is the new professional development website that we currently have online. When we began the Smartboard Integration Initiative 3 years ago, we were looking for a more effective and efficient way for teachers to share their resources. And so we basically created and implemented a shared folder, which is a drive that all teachers have access to share their online and digital resources. This graph shows you the activity within that shared folder in the last 3 years, and it's a very solid indication of the collaboration that's continuing to take place across the grade levels. Just want to highlight a couple things. You can see the solid blue line is the amount of files that have been added to the shared folder at the elementary level. And from 2010-11 school year to the 11-12 school year, you can see that elementary teachers added over 4,000 files. Likewise, kind of along the same trend, you can see that secondary teachers, when they began using it in 2010, started off with just a handful of files, and as of January 30th, they're almost to the 9,400 mark. And so as they become more familiar and more comfortable, not only sharing but opening kind of themselves up to critique from their colleagues and collaboration with their colleagues, they're putting more files into the shared folder and pulling more files out. And so that's a positive sign. It's an indication that our culture is continuing to change from isolation to collaboration. The other thing that I want to briefly show you is the professional development website. This is something that's new this year. It migrated from our district intranet, which is our in-house server only teachers have access to. They have to sign in. It was kind of cumbersome to get into, and it migrated to basically our online web page. And so it's more easily accessible, and it has a number of resources that teachers have responded very positively to. You can see that there's kind of a category of professional development, then a category of technology integration. Highlighting one thing from professional development, we have a series of on-demand professional development videos, much like you would find from Netflix or maybe from Mediacom cable. These on-demand videos address a number of the best practice areas. One set of videos is from a program called Success at the Core. Administrators have been encouraged to use these in some of their staff meetings or back-to-school workshops. And then the other set of videos is actually from MDE. Some of them have to do with professional learning communities, teacher observation, and so on. When it comes to technology integration, we have a new technology integration specialist, Russ Reitz, that has been with us for the good part of this year, and he has done amazing things in helping teachers integrate technology into their practice. Here are some of the different resources he's added to our technology integration portal, resources that have to do with SchoolWire's Outlook, a lot of the technology initiatives we currently have going on. I want to highlight one link, and that's the Smartboard link. We have a number of teachers at both levels, secondary and elementary, that continue to train each other. And part of this training is a model that we're starting to see more and more of around the state. It's called a flipped PD model, in which the training actually takes place online in the form of tutorials, and then coordinators and people like Russ go out and they support the teachers in the classroom after they've had a chance to kind of hear the direct instruction. And so our teachers in our district have put together, if you look on the right-hand column, all of these content-specific tutorials. A number of these are going to be used on February 20th at our district in-service. And down below, secondary teachers have begun addressing smartboards in the content areas with those tutorials. So teachers know that they always have a web page that's only a few clicks away to get immediate help for the questions they have related to technology. And as you can see, since this was launched about 3 weeks ago, we're close to 2,000 viewers so far on the web page, so it's getting a number of good hits. And that's all we wanted to highlight from professional development. Gladly take any questions now if you have anything. Anyone have questions?
Sure, I've got
Rich?
a couple of. You said about these files. What's in these files that you share? Are they research papers, or are they best practices, or lesson plans, or?
When it comes to the curriculum shared folder, the files that are housed in there are curriculum files. And so, for example, if you have a second grade teacher who has a notebook presentation that they use with the Smartboard, rather than having 6 others or 5 other second grade teachers try to make that, they put one standard copy in there, and all the teachers can access it then. And so it's files they use for their instructional purposes.
Okay. And on this professional development website, is there any access for the parents?
Yeah, in fact, this is live from the outside in.
Okay,
and
so there's no password?
No, it's not password protected. All the resources are resources that benefit everyone. And so if you ever want to take a look, it's located under staff resources. It's the second link, so feel free.
And then one final question, if I may, about the mentor program. You talk in here about coaching observation. How many observations do the new teachers get? And I'm assuming that's someone sitting in the classroom observing?
Eric and I service, we help support year 1, year 2, and year 3 staff. Our year one teachers throughout the year will probably get into their classrooms about 3 or 4 times just to do some informal observations. And then our year 2 and year 3 staff, we try to connect with them. We don't get into their classrooms as often. We've been invited into a number of different classes. We'll probably see them once or twice during the year.
Okay. And then are more veteran teachers, how often do you get into their classrooms?
Usually if we're asked to come in and support different curricular areas, that's when we go in to support them with their curriculum. We don't really go in to do any specific observations. That's usually more administrator-based.
Okay. And just to add to that one thing, Sheila mentioned the fact that she and I, we get in the classrooms about 4 times for each new teacher. In addition, their mentors do 2 complete observation cycles, which include a pre-conference, an observation, and a post-conference. So we provide, I'd say, an adequate amount of support, especially for those first-year teachers.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to open enrollment. Sue Ann?
Yes, we have, each year we talk about open enrollment at this time at our high school. Our high school is our one school that has been closed to open enrollment due to capacity. But every year at this time, this is the 3rd year, I've come to the board and asked to open it for a period of weeks. This time I'm changing it a bit and asking you to approve up to an additional 30 students at our high school. Now, if you look on page 67, you'll see that currently we have 19 applications on file. When we reach that 30 number, then the high school would be closed again. It would not be open to open enrollment. But what we're finding over the years is that different circumstances present themselves. A family moves in, thinks they're in the district, but are one stop over, or there's a change in plans, and they would like to be a Laker and be part of our high school, but they've missed that 3-week window. This would allow us to take a maximum, not necessarily that we would, but it would be a maximum of 30 students over the course of the next several months, and then close the high school for the coming year.
Any questions? Clarifications?
We haven't hit 30, have we?
No, we're at 19 right now.
But in the past few years,
No.
we haven't.
22, 24, something in there. But I just believe that if we did it that way, then if something presented itself, if a family presented themselves and would really like to be in our school, then we would have that opportunity. Mr. Lund has been supportive of this proposal and believes that those numbers will be assimilated into the student body very nicely.
Mike?
So just again as a clarification, I mean, in theory, even in November, if somebody moved in and they were across the road and they wanted to come to our high school instead of another one and there was still space on the 30. Mm-hmm. So it's really through the entirety of next school year for all intents and purposes, right? Okay.
Most of those, 99% of those students come.
But just so that people understand, I mean, what we're, by doing this, we're saying up to 30 if that happens first or the end of next school year for all intents and purposes, right?
Exactly, until next January, you know.
Okay.
So, just to be clear, we're talking from now to January, not now to the end of next school year.
Right.
Okay.
Because next January, we'll decide to close or open depending on what the recommendation is at that time for the coming year.
And, you know, I guess my question would be, and we talked about this at the workshop, any concerns with crowded classrooms or scheduling? Because we already have some core classes that are extremely full. And adding, I know we're just talking about adding 1 or 2 more bodies, but it's 1 or 2 more bodies into extremely cramped classrooms.
My personal opinion, I think last year we were going up to 25. We didn't get there, correct?
Right.
And this would be 5 more than what we had last year. I don't see a problem with it. I mean, you're right. We have large class sizes. Hopefully the change to order schedule will alleviate so we can balance. Theoretically, we're balanced right now. We have 34 to 35 in our classroom. So I don't see the additional from 25 to 23 causing me any concern.
And Will we have a better sense of that at the end of the school year as we make that change?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, once, I don't think it's any louder than I am, but yes, once we get the master schedule build, we'll have a much better indication. Like you said, we have some classes at 42 and we have some at 25 because of the balancing.
And we've also talked about adding a few teachers to the high school to lower some of those core classes anyway. And Dave, at this point, is looking at opening up some spaces to allow for more teaching space as part of the Growth Task Force recommendations of 2 years ago.
And so if we were to happen to get another 11 students in between now and the end of the year, we would then be automatically closed.
Automatically closed, right, with the number. Stacy?
So we had the 19 that are on here, I mean, generally if they're on here, they're staying with us?
Pretty much. Occasionally we'll have one or two that'll decide to go to another option, but generally we stick pretty close to this number. And it could be that it won't go over 20. You know, it just every year it's a little bit different depending on our cohort of friends that choose to go to Fire Lake High School or choose another school that they are thinking of. So. Any other questions?
You know, I continue to be concerned about, you know, the experiential aspects of what we have. We're in extra lunch hours. We have kids eating early. We've got crowded hallways, and admittedly, they have avenues to travel that they're not using. We have, you know, classrooms that are really full. I guess what I would like to see is at least some sort of report in August. And give us the chance to reassess. I mean, pass it tonight with the option to reassess it in, say, August. Once we get experience with the all-quarter classes, once we have been successful at figuring out where the spaces are going to be, let's just make sure that we've got the infrastructure, for lack of a better term, in place to be able to handle it. You know.
And by August, I can give you very accurate numbers at what our class sizes are.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to accept the open enrollment at Fire Lake High School as presented with the addition that we would reassess in August. Is that correct?
Yeah, at least
for a report back in August?
Yeah, report back, thanks.
Okay.
So moved.
By Todd, second by Stacy. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries 7-0. Moving on then to our budget parameters and priorities. Julie?
Good evening, Chair Schimmick, Dr. Gruber, and board members. Tonight we're going to review our budget planning process. This is something that we did discuss in the work session in January, and there really haven't been any changes to this discussion item, but I do want to present it to the board for their approval tonight. We will talk about our enrollment trends and our preliminary 2012 and 13 revenue budget, and what we predict will happen in 2013 and 14, and then of course our budget planning process. One of the things that we've been discussing every year are enrollment trends. This shows 5 scenarios that could possibly happen for the district from now until 2016-17. As you can see, that red line shows us being very steady, even some growth from where we are currently, and then some decline, slight decline when we move out to 2016-17. However, one of the things that's interesting is that this district has been growing for several years, and we haven't been declining at all. And so to predict for the next several years what our decline will be, if we have one, is not something that is easy to do at this point, because we have always been growing. And so that's why you have several different scenarios to look at for the future for our enrollment. But one of the things that does drive some of my thoughts that we'll be looking at some declining enrollment is the next slide that we have, which is our enrollment projections. And one of the things that's interesting is you can see when we look at grades 3 and higher, in 2012 and 13 that were in the 500s, 500 to 600 students. But when we look at grades K through 2, we have 400, in that 400 to 500 range, and it starts to look to the lower 400 range. If you look at 2013-14, we're at 405 in kindergarten versus grade 4, which is 515. That's 100 students difference. And so that's the little bit of the rationale for my thought that the district will start to decline to some extent at those younger grade levels. We still have high grade levels in the high school, grades 9 through 12, and steady numbers in the grades 6 through 8. But that elementary does decline as we move out. Now that could very well change as the demographics of our district change and the economy changes. We see some roadways being improved that could bring people into our district. We see a lot of, if the economy changes, we may see housing starts change. We've seen a little of that start already, and so that could definitely change our demographics for our district also. So this is some scenarios that we have, and we will know some better numbers for our kindergarten in this next week as we have our kindergarten enrollment in the next couple days. Some changes in enrollment. As you know, enrollment is one of our biggest driving factors for our revenue, and because we do receive revenue based on our student count. And so if we look at the changes, we see in the different grade levels, kindergarten, we see a decline in kindergarten. Grades 1 through 5, we see a decline there also from the current year to next year. 6 to 8 is pretty steady, and we have a slight decline there, but our grades 9 through 12 we do see increasing by about 50 kids. So total all grades, preliminarily, without knowing what our kindergarten is right now, we are about 75 students, projecting 75 students less than we have currently. One thing to keep in mind is we do have about 125 students that are part-time and full-time PSEO at the high school level. So please keep that in mind as we receive only partial funding for those students if they attend a post-secondary option. If we look out to 2013 and 14, we again see declines in the kindergarten through 5th grade level, a little bit higher declines at that point. Again, grades 6 through 8 is pretty steady, and still an increase at the high school level. So overall, we see an additional about 95 student decline when we look out to 2012-13. And again, we anticipate that maybe our PSEO will grow a little bit because we have a growing high school. More, the percentage of students going to PSEO will probably remain the same, but it means we would have more students going to PSEO. Again, all of this could change depending on if we have parents and families moving into the district with children that would attend our school district. As we look at budget planning, we definitely keep enrollment in mind. We also, some of the things that affect us from the legislature, and we do have the education shift, which we anticipate will remain at that 60-40. What that does is affects our cash flow, and so it's important that we maintain a fund balance in order to avoid having to borrow for the future as an expenditure for the district. We do see an increase in our general education formula for 2012-13, so we'll increase $50. But we will anticipate a 0% or no increase for 2013 and 14. Maybe some of you have heard that we do have a positive economic factor when we're looking at the overall state budget. However, they do not anticipate that will continue to stay positive over the next few years. So I do not anticipate an increase in 13-14. Some of the things that also affect us for 2012-13 is they suspended the 2% required staff development set aside. So we will look at that and see what the legislature does in 2013-14. They phased out the integration aid in 2014. We will get that for another year, but they will phase it out for 2014. And they will implement the literacy incentive aid, which we've had some discussion on this in the past. The proficiency aid is $85 of the school's enrollment times the percent of third graders meeting or exceeding proficiency on the MCA reading test. And then there's a growth factor also, And that's $85 times the school's enrollment, and that's the specific building that the fourth graders are in. Again, this is a percent of fourth graders making medium or high growth on the MCA reading test. And so depending on how many students are in those buildings, of those certain fourth graders taking that test, we'll have some determination on what that revenue is. So if we summarize that a little bit, the additional $50 on the basic revenue that we receive will bring us up to $5,224 for 2012-13. That's an additional $400,000 for the district. The literacy incentive aid begins in fiscal year 2013. That's an estimated $480,000, depending again on how we do with our testing. We did receive the ADSYS grant funding in the current year of about $350,000, and we anticipate that to be similar or more for 2012 and 13 and 2013-14. So if we do receive additional funding from the ADSYS grant, we would have additional expenditures to offset that. And if we have contract settlements, we will definitely implement those expenditures into our budget. And then one reminder is that this is the last year of our federal jobs bill dollars, and we did spend about $350,000 of that money this year. Just as an update or comparison, we look at the history of what we receive from the state in our formula versus what would it look like if we compare that to the CPI percentage index, and you can see that we're significantly less. And so we definitely haven't kept up with inflation for the money that we're receiving in funding from the state. And that is nothing new, but it's just also a reminder that that's why it's so difficult for us to budget. As we look at our fund balances, the district is very fortunate to have a stable fund balance, and something that has definitely helped us to avoid some expenditures this year because we haven't had to borrow money like several other districts have had to do. And so this is a really positive thing, and we are at the board goal, and so I do think if we maintain that, that will continue to be positive for this district. Some considerations as we go through that budget planning process: we will definitely be monitoring our enrollment at the elementary levels in that kindergarten specifically, and then also the increase at the secondary level. We'll be wanting to maximize that literacy grant potential for 2013 and beyond, monitoring those contract negotiations and considering the effect of that ADSYS grants at all of our levels and how we can maximize those dollars to help the district also. And then implementing any new programs and initiatives at all levels throughout the district. In this planning process, we definitely review our budget and base it on our strategic goals. We have a budget focus to seek a balanced budget, maximize our financial resources, and maintain that fund balance. We always want to ensure successful learning in our district and align our resources, our time, talents, and funds. And we are a well-positioned district. It's taken a lot of work on part of the board and the staff and the community to make sure that that's happening in our district. We have an excellent strategic plan, strong financial management practices, stable, I'm saying a stable student enrollment because I'm hoping that we'll continue to bring in students into this district, and we have a very problem-solving administrative team. Any questions about this budget planning process?
Any questions from the board? Eric?
In your budget assumptions for enrollment, were those head count that were changing, or were those student pupil units where that we get the weighted?
They show both. The chart shows both.
The one that shows the 46 students between.
That's ADMs. That's students, actual student head count.
That's actual student head count. Does that include any assumption on the open enrollment we just picked? So we could in theory be up around 76 students year over year, yes, and another 62 the following year.
Yes, that's correct. We could.
Okay.
And I'm hoping that Some interesting facts that we talked about this last year, or the current year, I should say, when we were enrolling kindergarten kids for the current year. We started at 410 when we went through our enrollment process in February, and we have 460 students. So we gained 50 students over the course of the summer. And so we want to keep that in mind as we look at our enrollment. We will definitely take the numbers that we have for kindergarten, but we will expect them to increase over the summer months also. So when we look at staffing, we will take some of those things into consideration. Yeah.
Stacy? Don't we have a little drop-off usually in 11th and 12th grade? I mean, do we have from year to year? I mean, here it kind of looks consistent, but...
It does look consistent. We do have a drop-off, but a lot of those students are now going to our ALC, and so those numbers are included as our total.
Okay.
But you will see a shift from the high school and going to the ALC, so those numbers will change.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion to accept the budget parameters and budget priorities for 2012-13?
So moved.
By Rich, second by Stacy. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries 7-0. Reduction of programs and positions, Leah?
Yes, Matt is going to take this one.
I will. I'm presenting a resolution directing the board to direct the administration to make recommendations for reductions in programs and positions. And this is a resolution that we need to adopt every year around this time of the year as we move forward into spring and need to look at our general student enrollment, our budget overall, and also our students' course selections for course enrollment.
Are there any questions? Clarifications, Tom?
Yeah, this isn't saying that there will be. It just gives them the ability to do it if necessary, correct?
That's correct. It's asking the administrators to make recommendations if it's necessary to do so.
Mike?
So I guess, for instance, I mean, as we look at numbers shifting from elementary to secondary, you know, one would presume that we're going to perhaps have to add some teaching positions at the high school and remove them at the elementary. So this is sort of the intent of. So our overall FTEs may stay the same, but we're going to be shifting them, and so because that is going to actually, if we have to do that, affect people. This is we have to have this in place to be able to accomplish that. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, do I have a motion to adopt the reduction in programs and positions if needed?
So moved.
By Eric, second by Tom. Any other questions? Okay, this requires a roll call vote. Eric?
Aye.
Rich?
Aye.
Stacy? Aye. Todd?
Aye.
Aye. Mike?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
That motion passes, carries 7-0. Thank you. Now we'll move on to School Board Recognition Week.
And that's my pleasure. February 20th through 24th, 2012 is School Board Recognition Week. And we have a resolution in your packet that I would like to read. Whereas the school board recognizes the importance of public education in our community, and whereas parents, students, and ISD 719 staff appreciate the vital role played by those individuals who, as local school board members, establish policies to ensure an efficient, effective school system. And whereas school board members serve as a voice that enables our community to preserve local management, control of our public schools. And whereas school board members are charged with representing our local education interests to state and federal government and ensuring compliance with state and federal law. And whereas school board members selflessly devote their knowledge, time, and talents as advocates for our school children. Whereas local school board members are strong advocates for public education and responsible for communicating the needs of the school district to the public and the public's expectations to the district. Now therefore be it resolved that the parents, students, and staff of ISD 719 recognize and salute the members of the Prior Lake Savage Area School Board by proclaiming February 20th through 24th, 2012 as School Board Recognition Week. Thank you all for your commitment to our schools and for your ongoing, unflagging support of our students and their learning.
Thank you. We'll move on then to policy. These are all first readings. The second and hopefully final reading will be at the March 12th meeting, our regular board meeting. These policies were all reviewed, I believe, during our work session. And I don't know if there's any specific changes after the work session.
No, the policies that have some work on them will go back to the policy committee later this week and then come back to you in March. So we just put on here the 3 policies that we believe come forward to you with very little changes as a result of having the first look at the study session. They certainly can be reviewed before our second reading, which will be in March. So the first policy is Policy 213, School Board Committees, and that's on page 74 of your packet. And the changes on this just reflect the changes that we've made. For instance, going from Buildings and Grounds Committee to the Facilities Committee, making those kind of changes. There aren't substantive changes in here other than aligning the wording with the current wording of the different groups. On C, there is a determination that if they're on an external committee, that we did add some extra wording in there, that you would be paid for your time unless paid by the representing agency. We just have one of those that does that. So we wanted to make sure that reflected that one instance.
Are there any questions on board committees?
So is the recommendation to adopt it after one reading, or is the recommendation?
No, we'll bring it back in March for a second reading. At this point, that's what I think we heard at the work session. So we'll bring it back. Okay. Are you going to do the next one?
Yes. 515 as protection and privacy of student records. This is one that Christy Mussman has been working on with Marcus and goes along also with 524, student use of information technology. And we did bring these to the study session as well. These are policies that we need to update as we move forward to make sure that we're in compliance with state statute, as well as representing the need that we have for access to student records for the students' sake. So this policy is ready for your review. Christy, is there anything else that we should be adding on that one? I don't think so.
Again, the main difference there is we just put drug-free information into policy 515. It's been in the student handbooks, but now it just has a home in policy, so that's why it's moved here.
Are you combining with 524 discussion?
We can combine it with the conversation about student use of information technology because they do seem to overlap a bit. And in this one, it really is the protection of the student and the protection of the school district and making sure that those rules and expectations are clearly stated and that students are following them to the letter. But we've moved the agreement into the first policy, which is at the end of policy 515, which is a one-page document that has everything on it, rather than having parents fill out or feel like they need to fill out several different documents.
Are there any comments or clarifications for policies 515 or 524? Eric?
I guess we talk about a lot of the information. Do we ever collect any other personally identifiable information on students, like social security numbers or I'm just trying to think. I know we used to collect parents' credit card numbers at times. I'm just thinking of some of that, what might be considered personally identifiable. Because we do talk about, I think we talked about grades here. I'm double checking again.
The directory information wouldn't include any of those things. What's housed at the individual schools, I couldn't speak to that, but directory information would not be part of that public data.
So 515 is specifically designed towards directories?
Right. In the past, we've had directory information that you've historically approved in the handbooks, but we haven't had it in policy. And so in reviewing the MSBA's policy, that is where they house it in 515. So that's where we moved it so that we could reference that directory information is in fact in board policy.
Okay, because within a D, we also talk about access. This is where I remember seeing it. Access to educational records, physical access to students during the day. So the policy is all-encompassing. Should we be looking at additional personally identifiable information for students? Would be my question to the policy committee.
We're following state statute on what should be available and what shouldn't be available. So that's why the wording in there is reflecting the MSBA wording on what's available. Am I missing your question?
I think you are, because one is what's available that you can opt out for. The other is what is always private, right? Such as if we were to collect a student social security number, that should always be private. And that's the only one that's popping to mind right now.
The way MSBA defines directory information as a board, you can set what you want to be public or private within that list.
What I'm saying is that when I go to Section D, Section C, yes, talks about the directory. Section D and other portions of the policy talk about more than just the directory.
And people don't have that option. The only options they have is the directory information list.
I'll take it offline. I've still got a question, but I'll take it offline with the policy committee.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay, as you look through these policies, if you have questions, concerns, need more clarification, if you would contact any one of us on the policy committee, that would be helpful. Since we're only having readings on the first board meeting of the month, it's helpful for that during that month time if we can get the information from you so that we present it at the board meeting, it's clear to everyone. So that would be helpful for our moving forward with our policies. So thank you, and we'll look forward to hearing your comments, Eric. Moving on to administrative reports, Superintendent Swan.
I do have at your place just an update for you on my annual goals of 2011-12, and I've highlighted that update in yellow for you to see that are basically when I look at what my action work is and our choice work, our study work this year, we're on target with most of our goals. I'm feeling like our goals are being met well. I know that when I've been visiting classrooms and in the buildings, our teachers are working on strategies to help our students be successful, not only in the classroom, but also on those state tests that come up that are going to be starting here very quickly, now very soon, that they've been working all year long to make sure that the students are proficient in those skills needed to be successful in their classwork, on their test work, but also on their state test work. So that's been a big area of influence this year of our teachers working very diligently to make that happen, as have our administrators. And so we're working on that. Our RTI has expanded with that additional monies that have gone to $350,000 this year. There is a cap on that of $500,000 is the most that we could get from the state, and we will be applying for that in the coming year to help support those learners that are having difficulties at all levels, beginning in kindergarten and going through 12th grade. So we're working on that as we move forward. Under our financial accountability to our community, we've continued to look for those innovations and different ways of doing business that could help save our district money. To that end, our long-term disability and life insurance were rebid this year and approved at a lower cost to the district in November, which took place then was implemented in January of 2012. We've also used our federal jobs bill dollars specifically to lower class size to make that learning experience optimal for our students. And we've completed our contract negotiations with our PLSEA and now working on our other groups concurrently to bring them up to speed, so we're on target there. As we've looked at innovative programming this year, we've been focusing on the E-STEM component of that, knowing that the next step after that proposal comes forward to you will be the immersion, and that will begin this spring and go through next year with recommendations back to you in the following, at this time next year. And that we're also going to be beginning a kindergarten study looking at the commonalities between half-day and full-day and the programmatic changes that might be needed to enhance those programs, given that we're looking at those 4-year-old programs throughout the state and what are we doing to prepare students. I mean, that time is that one variable that we have, and so recommendations will be coming forth from that group. I'm very pleased to say that our adult basic education and our ELL for adults, English language learners, and our GED programs have taken off here in the district under the leadership of Leanne Wyrack, and are continuing to evolve and grow and continue to gain more students. I saw Deb Mitchell tonight coming out of the Inventors Fair at Westwood, and she has about a dozen adults coming to her in that ELL program. We provide child care in the evening while they have the lessons, and as soon as they graduate from her, she sends them on to the other class that is the adult basic education or the GED, so they can get that high school diploma if needed. So there's some good work going on there, and that started as an initiative last year to bring that home. So I'm very pleased with the work that's being done there and feel like we're able to really meet the needs of our community right here in our community and not in another community. In the SAGE program, we've changed the testing. We looked at that over the course of the last year and decided to move away from our previous testing, have moved to COGAT, which has just been completed now and sent off. We'll be back by the end of the month, but we're anticipating that we will be looking again at our SAGE Academy and looking at we've had many parents ask us about second grade. Should we be assessing in first grade and moving them in second grade? And we've been reluctant to do that until we had a couple of years under our belt and see how our program is shaping up. But we're going to be looking at that most probably during the summer months this year and making a recommendation as we move forward. Our environmental focus certainly has been a part of our STEM initiative of looking and studying about what's best practice out there. And in fact, I think the recommendations coming forward through the Curriculum Advisory Committee will be called eSTEM, environmental and STEM together. We've started the organic recycling this year and hoping to have all of our buildings up and going by the end of June. The one hiccup for us has been the high school because of the size of it and the number of students and the number of areas to be able to get all the different containers and the students in line with what needs to happen has been a bit of a challenge, but we're working on it. Right, Chris? The students are working and helping us as we move forward on that. And we're supporting that ongoing innovation of our environmental education focus as we move forward. And then integrating technology. Our hybrid learning or our online learning is moving along. We have 6 courses that are hybrid online, so the teacher is teaching some of the days. Some of the days the students are working on Moodle, on a safe place in the sky and the clouds to present their materials, and then coming back again. We're growing those programs slowly to make sure that we're giving quality education to our students and not just throwing classes in. We're really trying to make sure that they have quality and that the teachers are satisfied that the students are learning at the same rigor and same level as if they were in class 5 days a week. Technology has been added to our photo studio and our graphic arts as an IMAX to better meet the needs of learners, and that'll be happening over spring break this year in 2012. And then those computers are going to be moving into another pod area where Dave Lund is putting together the third pod lab for students to access between classes or during classes at the high school. Our teachers are experimenting, some of them, with the use of iPhone technology in classrooms to see if that works. One of the unintended problems that we've had is that just getting access, having that many students have access at the same time is difficult, plus access in the building itself has been a bit of a challenge. So we have to work around that, but certainly there is that option to try it this year. We've done an internal audit by our administration and staff of our 5-year technology plan. That's has come through the facility committee and is currently in small group meeting that we just had previous to this meeting of a finance representative and a facility representative from the school board with Jim Delwo, Jeff Holmberg, Julie Sink, and myself to talk about next steps and where we're going to go with that. A data warehouse has been on your goals and on my goals, and it continues to be on our wish list as we build that infrastructure of technology that we need in order to have that strengthened. So we would like to see that happen, but we need to have the other pieces in place as well. So we'll continue to work on that. And lastly, engaging parents and families and community to strengthen that culture of respect and inclusion. The work this year has certainly been focused on marketing our district so that our community, our families know what we do offer, and we've had a marketing video for our entire district, which we've seen here. We also have one just for elementary, just for middle school, just for high school. They're much shorter. And then we also are on the Scott County website with a 1-minute video cameo on their website of the kinds of offerings that we have here in our district. We've also started our own YouTube channel, District 719, where we can store our videos as they come forward, as we collect them not only from our marketing efforts, but from activities at our schools and that have been produced in other places. So we're doing that. The Java Jive, the going out into the community. I've been to the Lions Club. We've had a sonnet open house, and I'm scheduled for the Optimist Club in March. And next week I'm meeting with our new Horizon Academy coordinator, director, and talking about ways that we can help support early learners and align what they're teaching with what we need them to know as they come to us in kindergarten. And then I'll have one more after that. We're looking at decision resources in the spring to come back and update us, give us another community survey regarding enrollment, innovation, what our community is looking for, some questions that we might want to ask will happen late spring, early summer. And then we've been live streaming our school board meetings. Now it will be once a month, the first meeting of the month. That has really helped people get to the board part of the meeting that they want to. They can click on it and get to it very quickly. So that seems to have worked out much better than previously. And then an innovation at Glendale is being piloted called a QR code, where a family can download an app that gets them on their smartphone that they can go right to the school right from their phone without going through the district first and getting online. So we're looking at that. That'll be coming back for you to see in the next month or so as one of the innovations and things that are cool in our school. So lots of good work going on, a couple of challenges, but all good work that's happening, and I'm very proud of the work that we've done and the progress that we've made toward these goals this year. Any questions? Questions? Just say two more things. One, we did have a good meeting a week ago Friday. Lee and I and Rich was here and Todd was here when our legislators, Senator Claire Roebling and Representative Mike Beard and Representative Mark Biskins came and visited with area schools and board members about education, the legislative session. We're very honest and open and tried to listen to our questions and concerns and ask good questions of us. So I thought it was a very productive meeting that we had together. Next month, on March 12th, we'll have our mayors, both Mayor Mike Meiser from Prior Lake and Mayor Janet Williams from Savage, give their State of the City report to us live here at our board meeting. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
Okay. Moving on to administrative reports. Jeff?
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Gruber. I'm here tonight to give you a very brief update on the No Child Left Behind state waiver. You may recall back in December during the board retreat, I gave a similar overview. At that time, it was really projections of what the state has submitted. And since that time, what I'm here to share with you tonight, a recent announcement that the state application has been accepted. And so, therefore, Minnesota has been waived to the following No Child Left Behind requirements. The biggest thing is the 2014 100% proficiency for all schools and districts, sanctions on schools and districts for not making AYP, identifying title schools or districts of in needs of improvement, corrective action, restructuring, and mandatory financial set-asides for school choice and supplemental education services. The application that Minnesota put together really brings in a very new level of accountability that we're going to be spending some time here this spring getting to know. There are very, I guess, few specifics available at this time as to how it will impact our district, other than I think it should be a pretty exciting spring, given all the testing that we'll be doing, as well as the MDE using those numbers and starting to apply it to their new accountability system. And so, nonetheless, the goal, or kind of the main focus coming forward, is the reduction of the achievement gap by 50% in 6 years. And that's coming from the state as part of their accountability. The application that Minnesota submitted.
Can I ask you a question on that?
Yeah.
Is that statewide or is that by, okay.
That is statewide. The achievement gap, obviously ethnicity, but also free and reduced price lunch. All of the subgroups that have traditionally existed with No Child Left Behind will still exist. As we move forward, as what the state's going to be applying for how districts and schools are doing versus the statewide populations of those student subgroups. The application has met 4 principles: college and career readiness expectation for students, state-developed differentiated recognition, accountability, and support, supporting effective instruction and leadership, and reducing duplication and unnecessary burden. And at the time, back in December, I had talked about this. This is one that I still have not seen much detail from the state as far as the duplication and unnecessary burden. But it is starting, the picture's starting to become clearer. You can see that some of the things are starting to be streamlined as far as how they are going to be looking at the data and working with school districts toward achieving proficiency. The new accountability system will have multiple measurements. There will still be annual testing, the Minnesota Comprehensive Assessments, but instead of the once time per year, as we're working towards math and reading, students will have multiple times per year to take the MCAs. And the state will take the best score that the student achieves and apply that towards how the school is doing in the long run. So that's good news. Typically, to be able to take the assessment, get the results in immediate fashion, teachers to apply the results, apply it to their teaching, directly instructing those areas of deficiency, as well as an opportunity for kids to take the test again, will certainly give us some very good data. Likewise, the state's going to be using that test data to establish what's called a multiple measurements rating. And it will generate a score for every school in the state based on achievement in 4 areas. Proficiency, you will still hear AYP and proficiency targets, or index targets, but the index targets will be revamped, they will be new. The targets that are currently in place are based on the 2014 100%. These will be based essentially how students perform versus other students in the state. And so I don't have any specifics as far as what those new index rates are, but I would imagine they will be forthcoming. It will also take into effect student growth, how students have performed from year to year. And I think you heard earlier in the budget, the presentation that Julie Sink shared with you, is that this is where our literacy incentive aid will be coming from, is that from 3rd to 4th grade, how our students do in the reading test, they're going to be measuring that growth, and that also will have implications on school funding, as will the proficiency for 3rd grade reading. Achievement gap reduction, subgroup growth compared to the state group growth, and graduation rates. And those are federally mandated, developed through a student cohort formula. In looking at these 4 achievement areas, elementary and middle schools will have MMR based on proficiency, individual student growth, and achievement gap reduction, not necessarily on graduation rates. The high school will have an MMR based on all 4 of these areas. The accountability system will be used to generate a rating, of course, as well as a categorical recognition. The top 15% will be considered reward schools. That will include an annual recognition of how schools are doing. Another category will be a celebration school, and this is a recognition that the state is putting in that is available, or the schools that fall into the next 25% after that top 15% could apply to be considered a celebration school, and that's part of the incentive part of the program coming forward. The application process, schools would go through that process to be considered a celebration school, and the selection of 10% of those schools would be selected for celebration status. And so that is an incentive way that the state is building in here. On the flip side of the coin, there are the continuous improvement schools, and that's the bottom 25% of title schools. There would be a creation of a school improvement plan that's very consistent with what we've done in the past as far as putting a plan together. And additionally, there would be the focus school category, 10% of title schools with the lowest combined score of proficiency and achievement gap reduction. And in looking at this, it appears to be, of the four categories, looking at these two, proficiency as well as achievement gap, and schools would work with their district as well as the MDE to implement interventions to address those concerns, to turn those schools around. And of course, priority schools, the bottom 5%, the 5% most consistently low-performing title schools, and those schools would have to have turnaround plans. As I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, I have no idea where schools in Prior Lake Savage would fall into these categories at this time. I would not indicate that we would be in the priority school status or focus school status, but as we go through this spring and go through our assessment and testing, we will start getting this data from the state, and it will become evident relatively quickly where our schools are in the grand scope of these categories and how these ratings are put together. Again, it's about accountability. That's the part that's consistent. It's not going to go away. The intent of the state accountability system is to provide greater flexibility to promote student achievement and school accountability. And in probably the most significant ways that can happen is multiple assessments, but also the ability of schools to be able to address the interventions and concerns, as well as not have financial restrictions in what they need to do to turn some of those things around. There will still be annual publishing of results, so annual reporting is also something that will continue. But there will be two measurements: adequate yearly progress, again relative to the new targets, no sanctions, like there have been with No Child Left Behind, as well as every school's how they did on the MMR. They'll be scored in those categories, 4 categories, or also 3 categories if you're in elementary or middle school. From a user standpoint, or community or parent, the scores would be put on a chart that people could access from the Minnesota Department of Education, and families or yourselves or the district will be able to compare themselves, schools within the district as well as schools in other districts, as far as how they compare in those MMR categories in overall performance. So, again, this is a very brief update. It's very similar to what we had talked about last December. But again, like I mentioned, it should be a pretty exciting spring. We're going to be starting the online assessments in math for MCAs here next week with our elementary and middle schools. We'll start testing online shortly thereafter. And so there will be updates as we go through the spring, as far as more information coming out about the new accountability system and how we can use that data in order to best make some educational decisions for our students.
There are a couple of questions that will bubble up. One is, do we continue to use NWEA for the MAP testing when this testing is eventually going to be 3 times a year? The math is now. How much testing will we need? And then is the data from the MCA online going to be usable as far as a formative assessment, so we can help students learn what they don't know? So those are questions that are bubbling out there that Jeff will keep an eye on as we move through the spring and summer months.
It's a very good question that comes up, because with map testing, we do test kids approximately 2 to 3 times a year. When you start looking at testing MCA 3s on math up to 3 times a year, and next year the reading portion of the test will be online, there certainly is a very high demand placed on our computer labs and on our technology just to test kids. We've started to have some very preliminary discussions on that future. And some of that comes down to using this spring to be able to gather that data, to look at what type, first of all, the testing experience for kids, for the MCAs. It's not Pearson anymore, it's AIR, so it's very different. But also the results we get back and how quickly we get those results back, so that we can see how students did and how specific or how deep those results are. Are we getting strand data? Are we getting substrand data? Are we getting a profile of a student of how they did from the standpoint of whether their strengths as well as their areas of development? And so preliminarily, we've really had a conversation about getting through this spring and talking about the testing experience, looking at the results we get from kids on the MCA math, and using that to make an informed decision about what is the future of testing, if we're going to continue to use MAP or not. Or are we going to use MAP testing for select groups of students, because that will also give us a certain, certain overview or profile of how students are doing and what their strengths and areas of development are. But at the end of the day, it does come down to a balance. Testing kids is all going online, and that's certainly, you have to test them using a computer. And it's a hardwired computer. The state has certified hardwire, not wireless, at least not yet. And so that further limits us. It is something we're going to continue to look at. It is something we're going to continue to talk about as far as what we're going to do moving forward.
Eric?
One quick question. Any talk or hints? I believe the class of 2013 is the first one accountable for the grad test, and will this are you hearing anything that this will supplant that, or will we keep that?
Everything that for the grad, the transition, all of that will remain the same, because that's built into the standards and what students have to pass in order to get a diploma. So the requirements and the academic standards will stay the same. The high school has actually been using the AIR version of the test since November this year, and it's been very user-friendly. It's been a bit easier than the Pearson system has in the past, and so I have every reason to believe it will be successful across the district. But the grad requirements are still in place for the high school students for a diploma.
Any other questions?
So do we have a commitment from the MD to provide data instantaneously or quickly, rather than us sitting for months and months on this information?
That is the plan. The plan is to get that data very shortly, by next day, so that we have that information to look at, so that teachers can look at that, district can look at that, curriculum committees can look at that, and start drawing some conclusions and making some informed decisions about the instruction that's happening in the classroom. That's always been the biggest challenge with the former MCAs, is that you take the test and then you don't get the results till sometimes August, September. The kids have moved on, and you're really not talking about real-time data. And that's always been the value of the MAP test, is that when students take the MAP test, you get a RIT score. And from the RIT score, you're able to draw some conclusions about what that student's doing very well in, as well as what that student needs to focus on. And so if everything works out by design, the MCA3 should be able to bring that data to us in a more timely manner, and we can also make some decisions with it, which will then lead us to the conversation about NWEA and using that as a way to assess kids.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Are there any other administrative reports?
Okay, we'll move on to board reports. Does anyone on the board have anything to report? Chris?
This week is our snow week. Today was the start of our snowball week. We gave hot chocolate out to the students that came in through the door this morning. Tomorrow's the whiteout at the basketball game, and the rest of the week we have dress-up days. The Pep Fest is Friday afternoon at 2 to 3, and then the snowball dance is from 8 to 11:30 on Friday evening.
And you had coronation last night?
We had coronation last night.
Anyone else?
And who won?
The Snowball King was Josh Ha. The Snowball Queen was Ashley Piatz.
So you know. Okay, then, moving on to future events. As Chris said, the snowball dance is February 18th at 8 o'clock at the high school. There's no school on February 20th for President's Day, district-wide. There is a district in-service that day. And district-wide kindergarten registration is February 21st at all elementaries in Edgewood. And our next meeting will be a board study session on February 27th here at 6 o'clock. And now I'll take a motion to close the meeting for negotiation strategies.
So moved.
Who did it? Tom?
I'll second it.
Second by Mike. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. We'll take about a 5-minute recess and start. Thank you. reopen our meeting.
So moved.
By Mike, second
Second.
by Tom. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries 7-0. Without any further business, do I have a motion to adjourn? By Eric, second by Stacy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries 7-0. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone. You did it all within 1 minute. 3 minutes.